In Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro met his Colombian counterpart, Gustavo Petro, at the Miraflores Palace to address bilateral and cooperation issues. In Palestine, dozens of innocent civilians, including children and women, were brutally massacred this Saturday in an Israeli airstrike targeting the UNRWA-run Al-Fakhura school in Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza. In Liberia, opposition leader Joseph Boakai is the new president-elect after winning the presidential runoff election last Tuesday. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, arrived this Saturday in Venezuela to meet with his Venezuelan counterpart, Nicolas Maduro, in order to strengthen fraternal ties between both nations. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon local time, the Colombian President, Gustavo Petro, was received by his Venezuelan counterpart, Nicolas Maduro, at the Miraflores Palace, where they held a meeting to discuss bilateral relations. Petro arrived this Saturday morning at the Simón Bolívar de Maiquetía International Airport in the state of La Guaira. The President of Colombia visited the 19th International Book Fair at its headquarters in the military circle in Caracas. During his speech at the fair, the Colombian President presented his book, Una Vida, Muchas Vidas, which he described as the story of a generation of revolutionaries who are no longer. On December 3rd, over 20 million voters will go to the polls during the national consultative referendum on the Guayana Esequiba. That is a legal right and citizen responsibility of the adults, but children and teenagers also take part in the process, but in a different way. Our correspondent Gladys Quesada tells us more.
In Caracas, school children packed the main hall of the Simón Bolívar Theater to enjoy The Sun of Venezuela Rises in the Esequibo, a 15-minute play that offers an overview of the historical milestones of their nation and the turning points of the dispute over the Guyana Esequiba. It could seem a simple task, but those involved in the production know well their responsibility to pass the knowledge and the patriotic values to the younger generations.
We decided to assemble it here in the Bolívar Theater and to summon the children of all the schools of the Libertador municipality here in Caracas. A montage that, as we have been saying, incorporates the children to this great campaign, and that every child, every youngster between 6 and 17 years old that make up this cast, and the children that come to see it from all the schools of the Libertador municipality, 1,350 children are present here today that are joining this call.
The importance of this work for us is that the children understand why we have to reclaim the Esequibo area, which is part of Venezuela.
The National Theatre Movement for Children and Youngsters produces the musical with a cast of over 145 actor children. The costumes and makeup design were specially crafted to represent the native fauna and flora, the Caribbean Sea, and the richness of the Guyana Esequiba region. The stage design puts in full display the colors of the national flag, red, yellow, and blue. Thanks to the aesthetic appeal and the musical ambience of the play, the young public learns through the spectacle, and the actors, also children, showcase their talent.
It helped me to understand it more. I didn't understand much, and it helped me to understand things, how everything was, and I thought it was a very beautiful work.
I have understood a lot, quite a lot, of the issues, and it has taught us what the specific days are, and who they were, and how the whole conflict developed.
From now on and until December the 3rd, the Big Little actors will keep offering their arts and will have a last performance on a bigger stage. The Simón Bolívar Square, the heart of Caracas downtown. This is one of the many ways the Venezuelan people voice their claim over the disputed region, from the adults to the little ones. Gladys Quesada, Caracas, Venezuela.
In Cuba on Saturday, the fourth conference, the nation and its immigrants kicked off. Some 400 Cubans living abroad are attending the conference to such issues as the way the Cuban government relates with its immigrant population, cultural and identity issues, economic development, and the role Cuban immigrants can play in the island's current socio-economic transformation. Attending the event is Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who called for strengthening ties with Cubans residing abroad. At the opening ceremony, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez explained the challenges facing Cuba today due to the combined effect of the U.S. economic blockade, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the current global crisis.
We are suffering the mixed effects of the extreme intensification of the economic, commercial, and financial blockade, the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the economic impact on the global crisis and the ongoing international conflict. This is happening in the midst of the innovative and revolutionary process in our economy, aimed at updating the socialist system, making it more efficient and adapting to the current realities of the country and the world.
The Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez recalled that the United Nations General Assembly rejected the blockade against Cuba, and the largest of the Antilles counts on the solidarity of all continents and all of its citizens overseas.
The General Assembly of the United Nations on November 2nd demanded almost unanimously that the government of the United States put an end to the blockade. We enjoyed an extraordinary solidarity in all continents, particularly at the crucial moments of our history in which Cubans living in other parts of the planet have had an active participation, which makes us feel very emotional.
In the Dominican Republic, the Emergency Operations Center declared a red alert for 7 provinces due to the danger posed by the heavy rains associated to the tropical storm affecting the Caribbean. The agency said another 10 provinces are on yellow alert and 9 districts are on green alert, for a total of 26 provinces on alert over possible flooding of rivers, streams, and creeks because of the tropical storm in the area, which has maximum sustained winds of 55 kilometers per hour and is moving towards the northeast at a speed of 28 kilometers per hour. The agency urged people to refrain from crossing rivers, streams, and creeks that present high volumes of water and not to go to bathing resorts in the provinces under alert. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In the midst of a critical situation, the people of Gaza continue to demonstrate unwavering resilience as they face an extremely difficult situation. Despite having been displaced from their homes, their determination and creativity to survive and rebuild their lives is extraordinary.
We are in the biggest refugee camp here in Janinis. This is the place where more than 50,000 Gazatese families are residing because they have been left homeless due to the Israeli attacks.
Como vemos, la gente está aquí en este lugar, instalada en estas tiendas de campaña, incluso con la aproximación de la lluvia.
As we can see, people here are installed in these tents. With the upcoming rain and winter, they have proceeded to put this kind of plastic over the tents so they don't flood. The situation here is quite difficult. There is no fuel or food, so people cook in clay ovens like this one you can see here, or using wood and fire because, as we know, there is no fuel or gasoline.
de barro también con un poco de madera incendiando algo de fuego, ya que como sabemos no hay combustible, no hay gasolina, no hay gas, no hay nada con el que puedan cocinar. Incluso
They even make the
comienzan
bread
ellos
themselves
son
since
los
there are
que
no
realizan
bakeries
ese
open.
pan, ya que no hay
The UNRWA
panaderías
provides them with
abiertas. La
flour for
UNRWA
them to knead
les
and make the bread
proporciona
on
algo
the
de
fire, as we
harina
have seen.
para que puedan
The Israeli
ellos
attacks
mismos
have
amasar
caused
y
these people
realizar
to go
ese
back
pan
over
a
50
fuego, como
years.
hemos visto
There are no
anteriormente.
basic needs
La
covered.
situación es
There is
bastante
no food,
difícil.
no water,
Israel
no
ha
fuel.
dejado que estas
Everything must
personas
be done
retrocedan
manually, as
unos
we have seen.
50 años, no tienen necesidades básicas, no hay alimentos, no hay agua, no hay combustible, todo lo proceden a realizar manualmente, como hemos visto. Y ahora nos procederemos a realizar
Now we will
una
proceed to
entrevista
interview one
con
of the
uno
gazettees
de
who
los
is here
gazatíes que se
to see the
encuentran
situation in
aquí
which they
para
find
ver la
themselves.
situación en la que
As
se
we can
encuentran.
see,
Como
this
vemos,
person
esta
is the one
persona
who is dedicating
ella misma
himself
es
to
quien
knead the
procede a
bread because
amasar el
there are
pan,
no
a hacer
places to buy
el
it
pan,
and they need to
ya
feed
que
their
no tienen la
families.
capacidad ni de comprar pan porque no hay lugares para comprar el pan y también
Could you
debido
tell
a
us
que
about the
necesita
difficulties
dar
that
de
you're
comer a
facing
sus
here?
familiares.
Only God knows the extent of our suffering here. I had to gather and buy wood to make bread to survive and to be able to help others to feed themselves. Everyone is equal. No one is better or more important than anyone else. Today we are all equal in our poverty, our sadness, our pain. There is no home here except from sadness, pain, and suffering from the destructions of houses, from the fallen martyrs, from the wounded. We are calling for security. Where is our security? They send us to move to the south, and on the way, they mob us all. Children, women, old people, we don't know what to do. We only count on good our Lord.
As you have been able to hear, this person has decided to take the flour that has been provided to him and together with a member of his family to knead the bread to feed the refugees who are in this place. As we have seen, the situation is quite critical and the only thing that these people are asking for is to be able to live in freedom and to be able to return to their homes, to resume their lives as they were before, even though that would be somewhat complicated. But what gazettees really want is for the war to end once and for all.
In Palestine, dozens of innocent civilians, including children and women, were brutally massacred this Saturday in an Israeli airstrike targeting the UNRWA-run Al-Fakhura school in Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza. The school has been used as a shelter for hundreds of families displaced as a result of the Israeli aggression on Gaza. Initial reports estimate the number of casualties at as many as 200. According to medical sources, dozens of victims were transported to the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza, which has already been operating at maximum capacity due to the fact that the most of the hospitals in northern Gaza have run out of service as a result of the Israeli aggression. Israeli attacks have not ceased since October 7. Schools, hospitals, educational institutions, and mosques have been constantly targeted by Israeli bombardments. Minister of Health Maya Al-Kaila said on Sunday that the Israeli occupation is committing a genocide against the entire healthcare system in the Gaza Strip, including hospitals, medical doctors, and patients. Speaking at a press conference, Al-Kaila called on the United Nations, international health organizations, and the International Committee of the Red Cross to exert pressure on Israel to allow the transport of the remaining children and patients from Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza to hospitals in the West Bank or Egypt. She highlighted that no hospital in Gaza has the capacity to accommodate the massive number of wounded on a non-stop Israeli bombardment. The minister questioned Israel's rationale behind preventing the entry of medicines and depriving patients of their right to receive treatment. Al-Qaeda called for an immediate cessation of the Israeli genocide in Gaza and the West Bank, demanding a halt to the targeting, shelling, and blockade of medical and healthcare facilities. In this context, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned the evacuation and closure of the Al-Shifa hospital, where more than 2,000 people were sheltered, including patients, medical personnel, and refugees who are now moving to southern Gaza. For their part, the Israeli occupation forces surrounding the largest health center in Gaza continue with the deployment of tanks and troops in search of Hamas members, while the Palestinian Islamist movement denies that they have any hideouts in the hospital. Russian government sent a second shipment of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. An aircraft of the Ministry of Emergency Situation took off this Saturday from Grozny Airport to Egypt with the humanitarian shipment. The aid comprises mattresses, pillows, personal hygiene products, food, and baby food. The humanitarian cargo will be delivered to the Egyptian Red Crescent, the organization in charge of the distribution in Gaza. In Brazil, social movements held a sixth demonstration against Israel's genocide committed against the Palestinian people. On this occasion, the protest took place in front of the Israeli consulate in Sao Paulo. Demonstrators demanded an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. They also requested that the government of Lula da Silva break diplomatic relations with the State of Israel because of the war crimes committed in Gaza. The rally is part of a series of demonstrations carried out in several parts of the world in order to stop the attacks in Gaza, which started last October 7th.
We are calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire to stop the suffering in Gaza. We recognize that this violence did not start on October 7th, even though it was very tragic and shocking, even though we have family, friends, and acquaintances who were impacted on Israel. At the same time, we understand that this violence emerges from a context of continuous oppression that has lasted since the founding of the State of Israel for 75 years, in a form of apartheid state, where oppression against the Palestinian people has been continuous and the emerging violence is just another cycle of violence within the process.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, APEC, Economic Leaders Meeting concluded the adoption of the Golden Gate Declaration on creating a resilient and sustainable future for all. The document was adopted following a two-day meeting held in San Francisco, California, in which leaders focused on the issues of sustainability, climate, energy transition, interconnectedness, and building inclusive and resilient economies. The leaders reaffirmed their determination to provide a free, open, fair, and non-discriminatory trade and investment environment. They also underscored the importance of the rules-based multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization at its core, which continues to catalyze the extraordinary growth of the APEC region. President Xi Jinping returned to Beijing on Saturday after his summit meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden and attending the 30th APEC Economic Leaders meeting in San Francisco. On Friday afternoon, representatives of overseas Chinese and Chinese students studying abroad flanked the road Xi passed in San Francisco, waving flags of China and the United States to bid farewell to President Xi and congratulate him on the successful visit. San Francisco Mayor London Breed another representative from the U.S. saw Xi off at the airport. In Spain, far-right sectors continue to protest against the investiture of Pedro Sanchez and the amnesty law. Those mobilized gathered near the Cibeles fountain in the city of Madrid. The mobilizations are in response to a call made by the leader of the Popular Party, Alberto Feijóo, and the leader of Vox, Santiago Abascal. The so-called amnesty law must be approved by Congress before November 27th, and it is strongly rejected by far-right sectors, considering that Pedro Sanchez is putting the Spanish state model at risk by giving in to the Catalan nationalists, and all in order to be able to continue with his own administrative project. In Zimbabwe, health authorities declared an emergency after an increase in confirmed cases of cholera in the capital, Harare. The measure was ordered after 51 deaths related to this disease were registered. According to the authorities, this figure brings the total number of deaths from the disease to 150. Meanwhile, the number of suspected cases of cholera in the country amounts to more than 7,000. In addition to the acute diarrheal infection contracted through the contaminated water or food, there is an erratic supply of drinking water in the cities of Zimbabwe. Russian government sent about 50,000 tons of grains completely free of charge to be distributed in several countries of the African nation. The Russian Ministry of Agriculture informed that 2 ships were loaded with 25,000 tons of grain each bound for Somalia and Burkina Faso. This is in compliance with the agreements signed by President Vladimir Putin in July in the middle of the Russia-Africa summit. Authorities specify that the next batch with the same amount of grain will be distributed in Central African Republic, Zimbabwe, Mali, and Eritrea. In Liberia, opposition leader Joseph Boakai is the new president-elect after winning the presidential runoff election last Tuesday. Boakai supporters danced in the streets of Monrovia as the head of the Electoral Commission announced that with 99.58% of polling stations counted, Boakai had won over 50% of the vote, whereas George Weah won 49%. The final result is suspended in 25 polling stations where the number of voters is unknown. Both presidential candidates say the voting day had gone peacefully and commended Liberian citizens' commitment to vote.
I'm so happy that the president accepted his defeat because he knew very well that he never did good. And now he wants to prove to the Liberian that he loved him by accepting it. Because if we don't accept it, we will go back to war. And we don't want to go back there.
And then people out there are celebrating. So I myself, I'm happy on that of Joseph Boakai achievement. They are saying rescue team, we pray and hope to see our people be rescued from this situation in Liberia this time.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. Before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscasts and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, TikTok. For telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.